this thing on? Do we need an intro? Where did you put the, oh, there you are. You're over here. All right then. I'm glad to see you all. Just hanging out in my bedroom. It's kind of creepy, guys, watching me sleep. How long have you been there, you kinky bastards? All right, whatever. If you didn't know, and I don't really know how you couldn't know, I'm Lewis Nichols. I've done some nerdy stuff. I've got some sci-fi stuff, some fantasy stuff, some horror stuff. That's on Amazon. A few short stories. I used to own a collectibles business. I've been DMing since 1986. That was the birth of my game world. So hopefully you'll find that you can trust me, because I'm pretty good at faking it. So you can feel comfortable. Seriously though, today we're going to talk about some world building or something. I don't know. What are we talking about? Where script's down here. Says here. Now, when I started developing the setting for what has become the Heston campaign, that one of my goals was to keep everybody on the map, keep them contained. Now, it was a pretty big area, size of Germany, so it wasn't that big a deal. But you have a tendency to let people wander, but keep them in check. And so far, I've done a pretty good job. Now, currently, they spend some time under the map, in the underneath, little war between dwarves and drow, lots of demons involved, just stuff. They killed the dragon. Mind Flayer had the barbarian this close. Anyway, not that I was rooting for the Mind Flayer. What DM would do that? So, the script. I had a script here. There was a 2-day trip to Trace Levon. That's a city that's a country. They did the capital of Trace Levon, where they did some shopping, but that barely counts. Now, recently, now there's been some talk about going south to the Dareburg River Valley and the wastes beyond. Now, I run open world, so really my PCs can do what they want to do, so I need to be prepared. It might happen, it might not happen, but why take a chance?
Which means we're doing some world building.
I don't know if it's better with that light on behind me or not. We're going to try this for a while. The first question is, what do we already know about these southern regions? What do I have documented? And really going through my notes, the only thing is that I know that the language is Median. That is actually a shared language that spoke through most of Heston. It says here that if you travel far enough, it becomes evident that the language has the roots in the infernal language of devils. If you're not familiar, I culturally speaking, for the area, there's some devil worship. There's some summoning. There's some rich families that use indentured devils, indentured by contract. Most of that is in the southern regions of the London Vale. The regions, the London Vale, the government is the Heston Authority. You go farther north, there's very little of it. But it's in the culture, so it's not that weird. Now, there is also a note here. There's a language of Tremor. The official entry reads, the language is rarely heard in the Heston Ridge area. Heston Ridge is another name for the Heston Vale, or for the London Vale. However, south of the Dareburg River, it's common among the villagers of the region. So I don't do what the books do. All my elves don't speak one language. All my dwarves don't speak one language. It's regional. You can have distinctions, but mostly it's by areas. How people interact is what the languages are. Over time, if there's a lot of contact, languages will kind of meld. But if you have isolated populations, they can diverge too. At one point, this, the fiendish language and Median, see, I know my words. It was one language. More likely, the infernal language was its own language, just as it is now. But over time, Median diverged and became I don't want to say human language, but a language of the local Velito, of civilization in this region. So next up, get away from language. What do we know based on campaign events, random crap I've said, related lore? We're just going to read here. We know that the Dareburg city-states are devilishly lawful evil. I don't really use alignments, but it is very descriptive, gives everybody an idea of what you're talking about. We know that the wastes are down below the river valley. We know that the Terraskew is in the southern part of the wastes. PCs are going to fight them eventually. Might as well throw them in there, add them to the workings of the world. I have every intention of escalating every stat, give him extra attacks, abilities, throw in some strange allies. I would hope for multiple character deaths in fighting a Terraskew. That should be your goal. This is one of the epic creatures of D&D. Make it count. More likely they'll kill it in round 2 because PCs do PC things. But more importantly, down south, we know there are orcs. They're actually part of events, storylines, but that's not what we're talking about today. We know that there are rampant fiendish influences in both the valley and further south. Farther south, you tend probably to get more into demons. I haven't world built that area yet, and then of course, like I said, the river valley itself is devils. We know it's hot. I've had it in my head, all this desert, and I don't know. I keep coming to a Mad Max idea, but it doesn't necessarily fit geographically, which isn't that big a deal. But I'm going to play with it. I got some ideas, which some of that we'll talk about. All right. So going back to the script, see, on top of it. As we begin to world build, perhaps the most important questions. What do we want? Let's chop this here and start again. Okay. We're going to go again. So the next step is to ask ourselves the most important question. What do we want? What is our vision for this area? What aspects do we want to make sure that we include, both in our world building, just for fun, just because we're doing something cool for our own enjoyment, and that the players will get a kick out of, what will entertain them. So I wrote some stuff down in my little script here. I do want that Mad Max 5, but not so techie. I've been listening to Critical Role Season 3, and it's a lot of fun stuff. They've got a very heavy kind of steampunk magic automaton vibe to parts of it. But I don't want to follow that. I mean, I can do that in other parts of the world, or some other campaign. It just that's too far for the feel I'm going for. I do have some techno magic things planned, but not like that. I don't want them driving around in cars. So I want big monsters. This is kind of a monster hunting campaign, hence the reason I know they're going to fight the Terraskew. I mean, they've taken on a Hydra. The last session I mentioned the Mind Flayer thing. It was an adult black dragon backed up by some Drow foot troops that aren't much of an issue. But anyway, and mind flayers. So I want, beholders and variants of all these tough creatures, even made tougher, catch the party unexpected, and incredible powers, but that put up a fight, and they can make they can make themselves a name for themselves, fighting these named beasts. So I've got a little side note here. This is what happens when you script, because it's kind of brainstorming at the same time. Uh, I want because who's heard of editing and actually going back and putting things in an order that makes sense, right? Uh, I want my settlements to be geographically restricted by water. That's a great way to add the weirdness factor, because by creating these divisions, you can make each little pocket its own little crazy universe. Uh, Most of all, I want to portray a profound sense of strangeness. I really want this to kind of be a fish out of water thing, even for the experienced players. We'll see how it goes. People have seen a lot, expect a lot between movies and books and campaigns, and I do have, even my younger players have played a lot of D&D, more 5e than I have. So we'll see what we can do. I want to, what do I got here? Yeah, just finishing the thought. Probably cut this. I want the PCs. I want the PCs to feel like they were really moving into foreign territory. Sorry about the chops. So, but as much as I like the one-on-one thing, you don't want to see me reading my notes and figuring out how to read the next few sentences. So, now all this craziness about the barrens, the wastes to the south, that all means that the Dareburg River Valley is my transition zone, and that's where we set everything up to lead them into this craziness. If they eventually go that way, like I said, I'm not pushing, but I have a feeling that once they start seeing these videos and realize that I'm developing the area, it just makes it all the more tempting for them to go down farther south. And they do have some business. There is things going on in the river valley, and once you go that far, there's even more reason to go just a little bit farther south. Next up, it's time for some brainstorming on the wastes. So when you do this kind of thing, you're just vomiting out information. When you brainstorm, don't think about individual stuff. This is like a quick word association game. You're just blasting out ideas. And then later you're going to clean them up. You're going to, you'll delete some things. You're going to wonder what the heck I meant by that, or what was I thinking? But some of them, will lead to some interesting combinations, hopefully, that's going to achieve your goals. So go. The blasters, flaming geysers, heat sinks where it gets crazy hot, like near boiling, storms that bring brutal heat, falling glass shards, meteors, lonely mountain volcanoes, red dragons. Why not? Of course, the plants and animal life, strange adapted life, mini oases that are ruled by jinn, sphinx, dragons, devils, fire giants. I'm going to do me some fire giant stuff. We're going to have them. I might buy that book that goes into the giants. I should order that. Of course, money. That's the hard part about being a D&D player, isn't it? Everything's money. It's all right. We're going to do it. We'll find a way. Am I done? Yep. Similar stuff. Those kinds of monsters. When we get to that point, we might do more videos, but I might just write them up. And then after the PCs bump into them, that might be something for a video then. But we'll see. I've got a ways to go. All right. All that said, this lays a rough idea of what the farther south is. But our main goal, this whole week we're kind of working on it, is the Dareburg River Valley. So let's look at our history. I like keeping a timeline, major events and such. So we first have a reference to the Dareburg River Valley in 400 BHA. That is like 1,300 years before the campaign setting. So this is ancient history. The cities of the Dareburg River Valley, as well as the Delta Coast, that is the coast downriver, so another several hundred miles to the west. They break ties with the powers of the London Vale in the wake of the collapse of the Loch Shmoor Empire. That was the first big controlling government of this region. A few years later, a few decades later, 375 to 346, the Dareburg River Valley is formally ruled over by two dragons in two separate kingdoms. So I'm going to probably flash the map here several times throughout the video, but those two separate kingdoms is Malice and the other city upriver. The Ancient Gray and the Blue rule. During this time, the cities of Malice and Gorkoth become prominent. So, during his 20 years, they were towns, right? A few thousand people. During this 20, 30, about 30-year period is when they boomed up from big town to significant city, probably up to around 40,000 people. I mean, that's a big city for a fantasy world. Now, for reference, 0 BHA is it's the local calendar of the Greater Heston Authority. Year 0 is when the authority was formed. Now, what this has to do with Malice and Gorkoth is that they were, according to historical records, could have potentially been part of the Heston Authority. But the story is that the members of the other noble houses with interests in the Vale to the north, the London Vale, were afraid that these two cities were going to end up dominating the authority. There were no cities. Heston was still pretty small. And even now, it's not as big as the two cities in the valley. So they were, that's the story. They were concerned about not, about sharing control. And they didn't allow this union to include the Dareburg River Valley. 175, the First Median War, named for the language they share. The conflict was brief, lasting only a summer, with 2 major battles. Nothing was resolved. The main thing that these two states fight over is kind of just hard feelings. They're the same culture, and they're both mad at each other's. Very similar to the same culture. There are differences. I mean, they've been essentially separated for 1,000 years or more. So, but there's still relations. There's still hard feelings. A million different little border disputes over the millennia. So, 543, the Umberwed Monarchy. As a direct result of the Fey Reformation, that's a whole video on its own, the Dareburg River States saw an end to the direct rule of strong devils. So began the Umberwed Monarchy. In the spring of 543, Seriphides III was crowned king. About 30 years later, 584 to 723, the reign of Seriphides Underwed the seventh. Seriphides Red-Eye was a regional superhero who ruled the city of Malice for over 100 years. So, yeah, by superhero, I mean, especially in a more ancient time, and this is still true in current campaign times to an extent, once you start getting over 12th level, I mean, you're an undisputed badass. You gain that superhero status, especially whenever you start getting past 16th, and of course then the fighters are bad enough, but I mean priests start making really effective god calls, and of course some of their high level spells are just amazing. And DMs, I think, are usually going to let them do other things within their spheres. There's no reason that a fertility god is not going to let their priests do help out the crops, or even boost the reproductive rates of Velito and other humanoids in a population. But I mean, that's up to DMs. This is just how I see things. That as priests gain these really high levels, that they're given even more power than what the book talks about. So back to our list. So that's in there, Red Eye, regional superhero. Then we jump forward about another 100 years. Well, no, we're actually in the middle. Okay, then we note the Second Median War in the middle of the reign of Seriphides Underwood the Seventh. The Second Median War was a significant conflict in the history of the Heston Authority. The Macbeth Lake region, the Corn Valley, and the southern approach were all occupied from 622 to 624. Heston itself was occupied in the winter of 624 and 625. The invasion was beaten back in a series of major battles during 625. However, one moment please. However, a big orcish incursion happened about the same time, forcing the Dareburg river states to fight on two fronts, and that is essentially what some people claim ended the war. Was it prompted by the Northerners? Yeah, who knows? Maybe it just happened. Orcs are a problem, right? 977. We're getting into some pretty recent history here. The Epra incursion. Or the Third Median War. Early in the winter of 977, forces from the south moved into the valley. These forces were largely unopposed due to internal turmoil in Heston. That's the thing about, being a chaotic state. Sometimes you just kind of, have bad years. The government nearly surrendered without much of a fight until the dwarves came to the rescue. Various charms and possessions were defeated by the dwarven priests, liberating the minds of affected nobles and officials. One great battle was fought between the dwarven army and the southern forces, resulting in a great victory for the dwarven kingdoms. Now look, the thing about world building, it's a big job, okay? There's a lot of things involved. Think about if an alien with no idea about how human culture worked came down and said, "Tell us about your hometown." I mean, where the heck do you start? You need to tell them about the big things about world events. You need to tell them about the little things about how your town policy is involves talks about homeless people, and how your schools are run, and how education is prioritized, and why are there potholes, and how do the taxes work, and what kind of music do you listen to, and what the heck is that place? Wait, strip club? No, not that I've ever. Yeah. But point is, a lot of stuff. So we're going to talk about some things. Gotta go back to my script. A big job from time to time. So we're going to do some shorts. You've probably already seen a few. But we're going to do some more substantial work too. We're going to try to keep these to like 5-minute videos. Now, my word count for this video, it was good for 5-6 minutes. I don't know what the heck's going to happen now that I'm doing all this type of face-to-face camera thing. You keep distracting me with your questions, and I mumble on and on and on. And of course, the camera, says 12 minutes. This is like the third video that's going to be spliced together, but what am I going to cut out? I might cut this out, huh? Yeah, could happen. You might never see this. Might be for nothing. This is our groundwork. This is kind of our starting point. Next episode, we're going to start talking more specifically about the city of Malice. That's our main goal. In the meantime, we're going to have our usual sign off, because I want you all to know that you are very important to me. You are important to the people around you, whether they tell you or not. Not everybody can express themselves properly, but just know that I like it that you exist. Have a good week. Have a good evening. Cheers.